Audio log 01. Retrieved from device marked E. Morrow / freelance. Date metadata corrupted. Estimated October 2024. Background noise consistent with an empty vehicle interior. Engine off. Light rain. This is Ethan Morrow, field correspondent, documenting preliminary observations at the Pine Hollow Radio Observatory site, Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania. The facility's been decommissioned since 2003. My assignment was simple: produce a feature piece about rural decline and forgotten infrastructure. But local police files mention several missing persons linked by one thing. They were all last seen within a 5-mile radius of the observatory. Officially, no connection. Unofficially, every resident I've spoken to tells me the same thing. The place hums at night. I arrived this morning, checked in at the motel in Montrose. Receptionist, mid-50s, didn't meet my eyes when I mentioned Pine Hollow. Said she'd rather not talk about it. Her exact words. I tried asking about the missing people. She knew 2 of them personally, both amateur hikers, both vanished last fall. No footprints, no personal effects, only parked cars found by the ranger station. The sheriff's report used the phrase environmental disorientation, whatever that means. I requested the files. They're sparse, photocopied, parts blacked out. I'll attach scans later. At 1640, I reached the outer fence of the observatory. Rusted chain link, signs stripped of lettering. Through binoculars, I could make out the main parabolic dish, half collapsed, and several smaller antenna towers. Everything covered in moss and early snow. No movement, but I kept hearing a distant resonance, like metal vibrating at low frequency. Could be the wind. Still, the pitch stayed constant even when the air died down. I walked around the perimeter, found a service gate unlatched. My first impression of the interior yard was silence. Thick, almost physical silence. The kind you only get inside concrete structures meant to block interference. My recorder picked up a faint hum again at 1803. I checked. No nearby power sources. The facility's been off the grid for 20 years. In a control building, I found desks overturned, paper logs scattered. Most were dated 1997 to 2001, signed by different operators. One log entry stood out. August 11th, 2001, 217. Source detected again. Same frequency, same modulation pattern. Authorization pending. No coordinates. A small tape reel was stored inside a steel locker marked PHS. I didn't have playback equipment with me, so I took it. The label says Cycle 8, raw feed. The air inside smelled metallic, old insulation and ozone. I swear the hum was louder when I stepped out. My phone recorded interference. Screen static for about 10 seconds, then back to normal. GPS froze. Driving back to Montrose, I noticed the static noise continued faintly through the car radio, even with the power off. I'll check tomorrow if it's still there. For now, I'm storing the tape in the motel safe and documenting everything digitally. This may not be just another forgotten ruin story. Something here still operates, or wants to. End of log 1. Audio log 02. Location: Montrose Motel, room 6. Recorded approximately 9:12 a.m. following morning. Ambient: passing cars, heater hum, intermittent static in background. Reviewing last night's raw field audio now. I applied a low-band filter on the laptop and isolated the tone captured at the observatory. It isn't environmental. The waveform repeats every 11.2 seconds, amplitude oscillating like a coded pulse. The base frequency, 1,420 megahertz, the hydrogen line. That's what Pine Hollow used for cosmic monitoring before shutdown. No transmitter around here should be using it, and the facility's power grid was cut 2 decades ago. I keep replaying it because there's an odd variance of the 30-second mark, like a breath between cycles. This morning I drove back out. The sky was gray, soft drizzle, the road slick with dead leaves. 2 miles before the turnoff, my phone lost signal again, though the battery drained faster this time, dropping 10% in 15 minutes. When I passed the old gas station, the air pressure in the cabin changed. The compass needle spun slowly clockwise. I parked by the rusted gate and kept the engine running just in case. I recorded a verbal note as I walked in. Temperature 6 degrees Celsius, no wind, auditory conditions normal. The hum resumed almost immediately once I reached the main complex, deeper than before, and not through air. It vibrated through the ground itself. Inside the control building, light barely entered through the cracks. The smell was worse today, sharp like burn insulation. Papers still scattered across the floor, but one logbook had fallen open to a page I hadn't noticed yesterday. Entry dated October 2001, the same month the site was officially closed. Only one line, pattern stabilized, awaiting further. No signature. The ink had bled into the page from moisture, but the handwriting was steady. I followed the hum to a corridor in the back, past the stairwell where warning labels flaked off the wall. At the end was a metal hatch, rusted, bolted, stamped sublevel storage B. The bolts gave way under leverage, screeching loud enough to echo up the hall. The air below smelled of oil and cold metal. I descended about 20 steps into a chamber the size of a garage. Concrete walls, single cabinet, junction box humming faintly. My flashlight stuttered every few seconds. I tested the junction casing, warm to the touch, around 36 degrees. Impossible without active current. Wires led down into the concrete floor, disappearing like veins. Then came the tapping, faint, rhythmic, deliberate. At first I thought it was water, but the intervals were precise, 5 seconds apart for beats, pause, then again. I called out, but the moment my voice echoed, the tapping stopped. Playback confirms the rhythm was mechanical, not echo. The waveform shows timing accuracy within milliseconds, almost like communication. I waited in silence nearly 2 minutes, then the hum surged again, lower frequency, and I felt the air compress slightly against my eardrums. I climbed back up. When I opened the hatch, daylight looked oddly dim, like the color had drained a bit. I turned the camera toward the main dish and zoomed in. The upper support structure was partially collapsed, yet new cables now ran from the base of the dish into the ground, thin silver threads glinting even under cloud cover. They weren't there yesterday. In archived maintenance photos from 2002, those lines don't exist. Someone's been modifying the structure, maybe recently. I searched the surrounding mud. No fresh tracks. Back in town, I stopped at the diner to back up footage over coffee. A local, Derek, mid-30s, electrician by trade, noticed the Pine Hollow label on my folder. He watched the video until the sublevel shot and went pale. Said his uncle worked there during the shutdown and that after August 2001, none of the staff were allowed back inside. He mentioned a night operator who vanished during what they called the signal event. County sealed the lower labs, citing contamination, but everyone in Montrose knew that wasn't the reason. According to him, for weeks afterward, people heard the hum, even in town, inside walls, under floors, until it just stopped. I asked him to clarify what happened that night, but he only said, "It's not a sound, it's a place," and left his half-eaten meal behind. I returned to the motel before dusk. Checked every device. Laptop off, phone wrapped in foil to test interference. Still the hum persisted through the walls, steady, distant, cycling exactly like before. I timed it again, 11.2 seconds. Identical. Either the whole area resonates with something underground, or the recordings themselves carry it. I keep replaying the tape label in my mind, cycle 8, raw feed. Tomorrow I'll try to play it using the local library's reel machine. If the hum's embedded in the magnetic tape, maybe it isn't coming from the observatory anymore. Maybe it's coming from whatever answered back. End of log 2. Audio log 03. Timestamp estimate. 23:48 hours, third night. Background audio contains faint wind, intermittent interference clicks, probable analog playback artifact. I am recording this from the county library's basement office. Door locked. Lights off except for the desk lamp. The librarian let me in earlier after I explained I was digitizing old news footage. She left at 7, gave me the keys. The reel-to-reel machine here still works, older Ampex model, loud motors, the kind used for archival radio. I mounted the Pine Hollow tape, cycle 8, raw feed. The magnetic strip was brittle, edges flaking, but still readable. I connected the output to my recorder and pressed play. For the first 2 minutes, nothing. Then a faint signal faded in. Static, layered pulses, rhythmically irregular but repeating, like distant code or heartbeat interference. The tone settled at 1,420 megahertz, identical to the observatory hum. I watched the VU meters, needle barely moving, then spiking every 11 seconds exactly. I adjusted the gain, slowed the playback speed by half, and that's when the noise changed. Beneath the hum, there was structure, modulated texture, almost human in cadence. Not a voice, not in any language, but something breathing through the carrier wave. Every cycle ended with a low-frequency thump that made the reel itself vibrate. The air in the room thickened. My ears started ringing, pressure building like I was underwater. I stopped the playback, but the sound didn't stop. It kept going from the speakers even after the machine halted. I unplugged it completely, and for a moment, everything went silent. Then the laptop speakers popped, and the hum resumed faintly through them, though the device wasn't connected to anything. I checked the recorder log. It had automatically begun capturing without manual input. I played back the segment and heard my own voice faintly layered under the signal, saying words I never spoke, cycle complete. Source established. The phrase repeated twice. My throat was dry, pulse high. I left the library immediately, locked the door behind me, took the reel, the recording, everything. Outside, the night was unnaturally quiet. Even the trees along the street stood still, not moving in the wind. When I reached the car, I noticed the same silver filament-like strands clinging to the windshield, thin as hair but metallic under the streetlights. I brushed one away. It left a faint static snap against my fingers like touching a CRT screen. I drove back to the motel without the radio on. Along the highway, I saw flickering light beyond the tree line toward the observatory. 3 flashes, slow and steady, in the same 11-second rhythm. I tried to record, but the phone battery dropped from 70 to 0 instantly. The camera shut down. Back in the room, I checked my equipment. Recorder LEDs dimly pulsing, matching the signal intervals. I can feel the vibration through the table when it cycles, like a subsonic wave moving through the floorboards. I unplugged everything again, but it keeps going. I can't tell if the sound is real or inside my head now. I contacted Derek earlier this evening before the playback. He hasn't answered. The diner staff said he never came in today, though his truck is still parked behind the lot, engine cold. I don't know if I should go back to Pine Hollow tomorrow or leave town entirely. But if the signal is following the equipment, maybe it's not the observatory anymore. It's the recording itself. Maybe once it's captured, it doesn't stop transmitting. I'll monitor through the night. Note any changes in frequency or pattern. If it shifts again, I'll attempt direct response broadcast on 1420 megahertz using the motel radio, just to see if anything answers back. End of log 3. Audio log 04. Metadata fragment. Final. Device signature matches previous logs. Audio integrity degraded. Background interference continuous. Estimated time. Unknown. Night conditions. Outdoor environment. The following recording appears to have been captured on the journalist's handheld recorder, later recovered near the Pine Hollow site perimeter. The sound bed consists of steady rain, wind resonance, low mechanical humming consistent with earlier frequencies. Voice begins faint, breath uneven, increasing distortion over time. I drove back to the observatory before dawn. Couldn't sleep. The hum never stopped. It grew stronger through the walls, through the mattress springs, through the pulse in my throat. When the first light hit the horizon, I packed the recorder, the tape reel, and a small emergency transmitter I borrowed from the library's storm shelter. I thought if I could rebroadcast the signal, just once, it might stop. The road to Pine Hollow felt longer this time, lined with fog that swallowed the trees whole. No birds. No engine sound, even though the tachometer showed 2,000 RPM. The moment I reached the fence line, the car lights dimmed and the engine died. Static filled the air, not from speakers, but from everywhere, vibrating in the bones of my skull. The gate was already open. Inside, the ground was slick, soil turned black and glassy like it had been burned. The cables I saw before now pulsed faintly with inner light, threading into the main dish like veins feeding a heart. I walked toward the center, every step heavy as if gravity itself deepened around me. The hum became rhythmic, rising and falling with my breathing, aligning to it. I set the transmitter on a broken console, tuned to 1420 megahertz, and hit record. The moment the channel opened, feedback roared through the air like thunder underwater. The dish above me flickered, lightless flashes outlining its structure against the sky. My recorder picked up a return pulse instantly. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats again like acknowledgement. I said my name, my location, asked if anyone was receiving. Playback later shows my voice echoed half a second after each word, deeper, slower, answering in perfect sync. Not overlapping, mirroring. I tried shutting down the transmitter, but the switch locked. The hum crescendoed, vibrating the metal floor panels until bolts rattled free. The cables tightened, drawing inward, their glow shifting from silver to white. For a second, I thought I heard people, distant, dozens of voices whispering the same word over and over, too low to understand. The light intensified until everything was outlines and shadows. Then silence. No sound, no wind, just static pressure in the chest, and a feeling like falling without movement. I must have blacked out. The next clear moment on tape is the aftermath. Rain hitting the dish, hum gone. The cables were melted into the earth, leaving glassy channels radiating outward like roots. The tape reel, now fused into the transmitter casing, still emitted faint warmth though unpowered. I left it there. When I looked toward the tree line, I saw the silhouettes of vehicles, police or maybe county trucks, but no engines running, no headlights. Just shapes in the mist. My recorder battery drained as I spoke these words. I don't know if this is still transmitting. The hum has stopped, but the air feels wrong, hollow, like the pause before an echo. If anyone finds this, check the frequency. Don't play the tape. It's not a signal. It's a call, and once you hear it, it knows you're listening. End of log 4.